Dirk, I would like to start off by asking you to just tell us a little bit about your ministry, you know, what you're doing currently, and then I would like to ask you to tell us about Talita.
Yes. Okay. Right. Odie and I, we both serve in an organization called Petra Institute. And Petra Institute used to be based in White River, and now we are not based anywhere. We have sort of a head office in the Durans, but we're actually spread out all over South Africa and even other countries. And the Petra Institute has been training people over the past 37 years now on how to actually work with children. Children in all kinds of circumstances. Children in the church, children in schools, children in whatever context. And both Odie and I were very much focused on children in trauma. How do you actually help a child that is going through or that went through severe trauma? And that took us all over the world. And, Odie can later tell how she also moved, especially to Asia. I was mostly involved in Africa and the Middle East. And we're still with this organization, even though we don't live in White River anymore.
So, you and Talita got to know each other about 44 years ago. You went out for 4 years and you had a relationship, and then you got married for 40 years now. Tell us about Talita. Tell us about the partnership which you had. And tell us about your ministry together, that we can just introduce Talita also to the audience.
Yeah, Talita, she was officially a mathematics teacher, but she did many different things in her life. Because I was a pastor in the church in the Western Cape, when I started with my own sort of professional ministry, she just she gave up the teaching. Well, she did it part-time. And then eventually she joined me. Well, we as a family with our 2 sons, we came to White River to join Petra Institute. The thing about Talita is just, she was an amazingly brave woman. She, you know, well, name some of the others you know her. She went with me into zones, war zones in Central African Republic. We were in Gaza twice. While the war was still on, so you know, the whole of Gaza would be shaking with the bombing, and Talita would just be there, just serving and just teaching, and you know, completely a brave woman with lots and lots of talents, completely devoted to the ministry, you know, devoted to our family, to me, yeah, and a remarkable woman, and that I had the incredible privilege of sharing. 40 years, 4 years before that, she was a teacher in Malawi. That's why it took us 4 years to marry. But yeah, just an amazing woman.
So I've got a photo there at the back. If you can just introduce your family for us.
Very beautiful. Okay, so my 2 sons at the back, the eldest Hugh and Micha with their wives and the 2 babies. In the meantime, Micha and his wife Melissa, they also, you know, they gave birth, she gave birth to a baby. So that is the family, 3 grandchildren. Also both of them serving the Lord, like completely and fully, all of them.
So you 2 were involved with Petra here on the mountain, therefore you were heading the ministry, weren't you, here from roughly about 2000?
Yes, I was around about 16 years. I was the director here in White River.
And you did the courses of walking with wounded and entering the world of the child, and you gave it all over the world, actually, up to Russia as well.
Russia, Ukraine, yeah.
And especially you went a lot to refugee camps as well together.
You're right.
Right. So now you had a remarkable ministry. Remarkable partnership, the 2 of you. She worked on the one half. What was her strong points in this relationship, in the partnership, in the ministry?
Yeah, I'm loose-headed. And she's straight-headed. So, I mean, and she's brave, and she can organize, and she can do, so she's much of a driver. I'm like, you know, I like chatting, so, you know, nobody would have had any meals if it depended on me, you know. So, yeah, she's just one of these people that organize very well, but also very passionate and compassionate, very much.
So, in 2023, one of the dreams which you had, both of you had, was to have your own home.
Yes.
So you stayed here in the mountain in Petra, and then you moved down to Coetsee, and in a miraculous way, it was Claymont, yeah. And in a miraculous way, you got your house.
Yes.
The thing that you dreamed about.
Yes.
So in 1 week, so you moved into your house.
Yes.
Your first granddaughter were born, and then Talita was diagnosed with pancreas cancer.
Exactly. But in 6 days, 3 major things happened.
Tell us, share with us. So you're in the ministry, you're starting something new, you moved from here down to Claymont now, and there's a new, different direction that you're going with Petra Children's Institute, and here comes this diagnosis of pancreas cancer.
Can I just say one thing about the house, because it's quite important later in the story. Karain, over there, sitting with a boy on her lap, her parents were best friends of ours at university. So we saw her, you know, since she was born. Our children grew up together, so it was also a miracle that they married. But we built the house together with her parents. We said we believe in community. We're going to build a house together with our in-laws. I mean, who does that? And the thing is, yeah, absolutely. And we planned it together. That's the main thing. Without any hiccups. Mona gave us some very good advice at some point, you know, and we followed your advice. I'm just want to tell you, and you will see that house. It is actually, many people make input. That was very important, because we moved into that house while it was still being built. And when she got sick, within a few weeks, my son and his wife, they just left everything and they moved in with us. So I'm just want you to see that picture.
So you were living on the top, second floor,
and they moved into Karain's parents' house because they were still in Johannesburg.
Right.
So that's part of the story, which is an important part. What are you saying? I mean, Talita spent 3 years basically as the project manager of that house. She moved in. The boxes were still in the story. 4 days. 4 days after we moved in, she was diagnosed. I mean, your whole world falls apart. You just ask yourself, what now? She says, I don't feel like unpacking the boxes. Why should I do that? Leave them. I said, weeks into it, they said, we haven't hung any pictures on the walls yet. She said, why? I mean, well, she said, you can hang them wherever you wish. I said, no, you have to decide with me. She says, I'm dying. So, because it was pancreas cancer, you know the statistics, course. They have this thing of, what are your chances to be alive after 5 years? 5 years after you have been diagnosed. With pancreas, between 3 and 7%. Others will be 50 and 80 and even 90%. So, very, very soon we realized this is going to be terminal. Even though we absolutely had complete faith in God, it was as if we knew this is not going to end in healing, it's going to end in death. Which it really helped us to make that decision. Because that meant that we could prepare. She lived for 6 months. After she was diagnosed, She lived for exactly 6 months and she passed away.
How did the atmosphere change? You know, so in the beginning, I'm sure you know, we as Christians we pray,
Yes.
and we believe that God will heal.
Yes.
And then you get to a stage where you see God's not going to heal. I mean that she's going to die. You know, so terminal, and she's going to die. And what happened then in you? In the approach that you had then together, what did you sit down together and decide how are we going to walk this last few months specifically?
Yeah. It's interesting. You know, I hear how you say that we realized God is not going to heal her. I think it was deeper than that. It's more that God showed us she's going to die. You understand?
Yeah,
it's not that we gave up hope.
Yeah.
That we said, no, God is doing nothing. I think it was more like a very clear conviction. This is not going to end in life. It's going to end in death. Now, many people blamed us. They said, you know, your problem is you don't believe in miracles. Or they would ask us, do you believe in miracles? And then our answer was, no, we don't believe in miracles. And people were shocked that they would, you know, blame me. But the point is, belief always is linked to a relationship. And you cannot have a relationship with a miracle. You hear that? You can only have a relationship with a living person, or in our case, a living God. So we said, no, we don't believe in miracles, but we believe in God. And God can do miracles, which is completely different. Because when the miracle did not come, and obviously we were praying for a miracle. You know, we said very clearly, we said, God, we only have one prayer, that Talita will teach that little girl there, Talia is her name, how to bake a poppy seed cake, which is 12 years old. That was our prayer. And we put it there and said, you've heard us. This is our prayer. Nothing else. And God basically showed us, well, Talita's not going to teach her, but maybe her mother is going to teach her. And Karen can bake a poppy seed cake. She's going to teach Talia. So, our faith in God was never disturbed because there was no miracle. You hear that? So for both of us, it was extremely important. We put our faith in the living God, who can or would not deliver a miracle. It will not change us and not change our faith. So I think you understand. So we came to this point. She went through all the processes, chemo and all the things, because it's the responsible thing to do. We were responsible in our process. But the chemo just showed nothing is happening, you know, no response to the chemo. And eventually, we just decided the chemo is stealing the little bit of quality of life that she still has. Let's stop it. And with the oncologists, it's not like from one side. We all just decided, let's have the last two and a half months of her life. We live it out fully.
So there was, so it wasn't a plan that you had, you lived day by day.
Absolutely.
From there on, when you realized that, you changed from a long-term vision to a day-by-day living. What was your main emphasis on that day-by-day?
Yeah. Can I start by saying that I lived, obviously, fear was overwhelming. And I realized the moment that I start thinking into the future, I'm overwhelmed by fear. I'm overwhelmed by thinking, what will happen to Talita? And she also had the fear. What's going to happen to my body? You know, I can see things, and the pain is increasing, and pain is increasing. And I had the fear of what's going to happen. And then both of us decided, fear cannot determine our lives. We cannot live by fear. We have to live by the opposite of fear. And as you know, the opposite of fear is not courage, because the opposite of fear is love. You hear what I'm saying now? Don't think the opposite of fear is courage. The opposite of fear is love. And we said we're going to love each other. That's the only way we can overcome fear. And we're going to love each other day by day. Fear has no place in our lives as long as we keep on loving. We love the grandchildren, we love the children, we love our friends. And this is when we live by love. It's the only way that you can go through a time like that.
On your friends, that during that, I know you've got an incredible amount of friends that you built up relationships during your years in ministry. And I know that they supported Talita incredible amount, as for you as well. What was valuable from your friends, and what was not wise that they did? The reason why I'm asking this is because I see it when people get diagnosed with a terminal disease, that we not prepared, or we're not trained to guide them through such a difficult process. We don't know what to do. Nobody teaches us how to do that. And then we either try to run away on the one side, and not face the pain, or say something to make the situation better, but then it ends up something stupid.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of people that say, God is going to heal you. I don't have any doubt about that. God showed me, and then eventually it didn't happen, and there was a lot of soreness after that, heartache.
Yeah.
So I would like to know from you, in that time period, what was valuable for you, that you can advise us whenever we get into a situation, how to handle, how to assist, how to encourage somebody in a terminal disease.
If we was to answer that question, I just want to explain one other thing, because then when I explain this, you will also understand what we discovered about people and people's approach to us. I said now the opposite of fear is not courage, it is love. But there's another thing that is extremely important. The opposite of joy is not sadness. We normally say the opposite of joy is sadness. But that cannot be true. Because Jesus even said, happy are those who mourn. So how can they be opposites? James wrote, the brother of Jesus who wrote, consider pure joy if you go through sadness. So the opposite of joy is something else. And I'll explain that now, because that's important in terms of your question. But can I just say a little bit more about what I'm saying now? One of the things that really helped Talita and I is the way that we looked at life. Even before that, but in that 6 months and afterwards, this was extremely valuable to me. And for the rest of the evening, I'd like us to come back to that. We normally think of life as ups and downs. We say, I had an up period, and now things are going very well, and then I'm in a down. I go up, and I can see far, and life is, the vision, the future is really bright. And then I'm down here in the valley, and it's dark, and I don't know how to deal with it. And then my desire is to get out of this valley as quickly as possible. And sometimes I try to use my friends to help me out. Well, I use anything to get out of this valley, because I believe God is not here. I have to get out of the valley. God is only there on the hill. I mean, this is a logical way of thinking about life. It's ups and downs. That's how we experience it. But this is not true. Life is not about ups and downs. It's not about happiness and then sadness and then happiness and then sadness. The thing is, happiness and sadness run together all the time. So this metaphor, this metaphor of a road that goes up and down, is a very unhelpful picture. It's not helping you. But the moment that you stay, I see the picture as two railway tracks. And then the one track is happiness, and the other one is sadness. And the train needs both of them to run. Then life starts to make sense. And sometimes you can, the train will go around the corner and then it will lean a little bit more on the one side and you feel, this is just darkness, unhappiness. I can't see the future. It's hopeless. It's just, but the other one is still there. The joy is there. You just don't experience it, you don't know about that. And other times you are on the joy side, the train goes the other way, and then you have joy, but the sadness is there. And the problem is we often think, I should avoid the sadness. I should only run on one track. And some people say, no, I should avoid the happiness. I should only run on the track of sadness. The moment you do that, you're in deep trouble. So Talita and I, we tried to run the 6 months of a terminal illness. We tried to run on both tracks at the same time. And I often use this example. The little girl sitting there, Talia. She was born, as you said, just a few days before Talita discovered the cancer. And she would sit there, Talita was already getting weak. She would spend many hours in bed, but just because she was tired. And then we would have this little baby sitting with her. She was 6 months when Talita passed away. And I would play music. Early in the morning, I would play cello music. And then Talia, the little girl, she would keep completely quiet. And she would turn her head and she would try to look. Where does the music come from? She was just fascinated by the music. And then both Talita and I would just start crying. Not boring, it's just the tears would start running. But the secret of those tears, one was a tear of complete joy. The beauty of this incredible moment. Talia sitting there listening to this beautiful music. Talita's holding her, and we were just in this moment of complete deep intimacy with our grandchild. And obviously the other tear was Talita knew. If Talia ever picks up cello and she starts playing, Talita will not be around to hear it. So we simply can cry two tears at the same time. The one of complete joy and the other one of complete sadness at the same time. So our life has been like that. My life is still like that. I can cry two tears at the same time. Because joy and sadness runs parallel to one another. Now, okay, Cobus, now your question was, what about people? One of the things that people struggle with is to deal with that. So they would come in, sit with Talita, and then they feel they have to be sad. But they don't understand. She's open for joy. Because you see, if you live like this, to railway tracks, you say, I'm open to joy. Even though I'm going through a very, very terrible time. So Talita was suffering, she was on morphine, as you know, the last section of her. And then she would have this complete joy seeing a friend coming in. But the friend thinks, I cannot now be joyful. I must now be sad. Because she didn't understand the railway thing. And then the friend will sit there and feeling awkward. And Talita would say, or I would tell the friend sometimes, come, just lie next to Talita on the bed and read the funny stories. No, just funny stories, Jan Spies stories, and that kind of thing. And then Talita would fall asleep halfway through the stories, and this friend will continue. And there's just so much joy, and both of them will be crying. The moment that people started to understand, you can have joy and sadness at the same time, they really started to help us. Because that also meant, in the times of joy, We have respect for sadness. So if a friend comes who has respect for sadness and joy, respect for Talita's pain, but also respect for Talita's love for life, those people help us. Sometimes they would just want to sit. On stage, two sisters came to visit, and the one was talking. The other one was just sitting there crying, but not the sadness cry, just the cry as I explained now. And afterwards I realized the one who said that thing just had a tear running from her eyes. That was the one who helped Talita, because she felt something of the holiness of this baby when Talita was dying. So I think it's very simple. We are scared of people who die. We are scared. We are scared of people who suffer. We are scared of a guy who lost his job. We are scared of somebody who lost his leg. We don't know what to do. But it's not that what you do. The question is not what you do. The question is, who are you? Who are you in that situation? So if I go to my friend, he went through, let's take my example. He lost his wife. He is broken. He's completely broken. Now I stand there outside the door and say, I wish where the pastor was here. I wish somebody. I wish I was. I wish I knew what to do. It's the wrong question. Don't ask the question, what should I do? The question is just one question. Who do I want to be? Who do I want to be when I step through this front door? Who do I want to be? I know. I want to be a loving friend. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I have no idea what I'm going to say. I have no idea what are the right words and what are the wrong words. But I do know who I want to be. I want to be a loving friend. And if I focus on who I want to be, I do the right things. It just comes. I'm not trying to preach. I'm just saying this is the deep discoveries that I and Talita made. Talita, while you're dying, the question is not what do you want to do. Talita, who do you want to be? What kind of terminal person do you want to be? She says, I want to be a person who just pours out love to anybody who can hear that. I just want to pour out goodness, softness. And you remember the messages that Talita sent. Just gentleness and softness. She says, I don't know what to do, but I know what I want to do. Okay, it's a long answer.
No, thank you. This is what I want to know. I want to hear your heart in this situation, because as you said, we don't know what to do. And then we try to prevent getting into the situation, That's the worst thing to do, is to stay away, because you can't handle the pain or don't know what to do before that.
Yes.
Were you scared? What was your the big thing that you were scared when you saw that she was going to die? What was the fear that you had to face?
Yeah, I think there are several fears. I mean, I can make a list of fears, but let's just highlight one or two. Talita always said she really hopes that she doesn't die before me, because she says you are going to be a very poor caretaker. You don't have to cook, you don't have to do anything. You're just not going to take good care of me. And when she was diagnosed, I said, this is happening. The one thing that both of us feared. I mean, she could take very well care of me, but I can't take care of her. So that was my first fear. I don't know how to take care of my own wife, even if she has flu. Forget about, dying of cancer. And then, obviously, how on earth am I going to cope once she's not there? My fears of falling apart, my fears of saying stupid things, my fears of hurting her, physically, by doing the wrong things medically, because she was in her home. She never went to hospital. That was one of the biggest blessings that we had. She never went to the hospital. She stayed with us until the night that she died. And Karen and I we just looked after her day after day. And we had the help of brilliant, wonderful people from the hospice. I mean, without Anne from the hospice, we would have done many things wrong. So, yeah.
So did your perception of God change in this situation than the one that you had previously?
No. Because I always knew God is a God that can deal with joy and suffering. You know, Jesus lived joy and suffering at the same time. So while he was dying, he still had the joy of looking at his mother and his best, his disciple. He had the skill of living on those road tracks. He had that. So I knew that same Jesus is now with us, and he understands joy and sadness like I would never understand. And that did not change. It never changed. I never felt I don't trust God anymore. I've lost hope. I never felt like that. I always said, I have a very deep understanding of God right here with us. Okay?
Tell us about the night, your last communion that you had.
Sure. Yeah, she died on a Sunday evening. And that Friday, by that time, she was already very weak, mostly sleeping, also very much affected by morphine. But then the whole family, all of us, we were there, just us. And we asked Micha, because Micha over there, he's the pastor, we asked him to lead us in Holy Communion. And so he broke the bread and he gave it to Jotam, the little boy, and he went around and he passed, he basically shared it like a deacon. So we're sitting there with a candle, and we propped up Talita. We carried her from the room, and she was propped up against the cushions there. And basically, mostly her eyes closed, but she was conscious. So she would nod at certain points and listen. And then we had this habit that if we break the bread, we would say, "This is the body of Jesus. It's for you." And the same with the wine. This is the blood of Jesus. It's for you. And so Jotam gave her a glass. We were not sure if she would be able to swallow or anything. But when he gave her this little tiny glass of wine, she opened her eyes. And she had beautiful green eyes, beautiful eyes. And she looked straight at me. And she said with a very clear voice, "Dirk, the blood of Jesus is for you. It's for you. It's for you." And she gave me the glass, and she closed her eyes. That was basically the last thing that she said. After that, the last 2 days, the Saturday and the Sunday, she was mostly in the coma. And she was mostly just moaning. It was the conversation stopped that night when she gave me the blood of Jesus.
Why didn't you let her about God in your loss?
I didn't let about God
In your loss?
Yes, I understand. He is so present. So present. So that I've used a word which some people, struggle to understand. I use the word adventure for my life, even after Talita passed away. But also concerning her, we had this very adventurous life, going through so many amazing things. As I explained now, going into very difficult situations, just finding the joy there. And then we went into this adventure of 6 months. Now, why do I call it an adventure? Because an adventure is full of dragons. You have to have so many weapons to fight these dragons. You have to go through very dark places. You have to climb up into the snow. An adventure is a journey full of joy and full of suffering. You cannot do an adventure alone. There is no such thing. There are people who say, he's very adventurous, he went on his own. An adventure only makes sense if you have companions. It's pilgrims. Pilgrims have an adventure. Companions, comrades. Okay. And then, that night, our adventure split into two. And Talita went on an adventure with Jesus, where she could speak to Jesus in a way that I cannot. He answers her questions in a way that he doesn't answer my questions. So she went on an adventure of complete and total presence with Jesus. It's an amazing adventure. I just love the fact that she's with Jesus, but not sitting there on a cloud and playing a harp. They have a very adventurous life together. I can't wait to see what adventures they have at the moment. At the same time, the very same time, I went on a new adventure without a leader. Many dragons, many clouds, darkness. But the same Jesus who's holding Talita's hand is holding my hand. So I don't try to speak to Talita. People say you will speak to your wife. No, I don't even try to speak to her. Because it's completely irrelevant. I only speak to Jesus. If he wants to, he can speak to her. If he thinks it's appropriate. But I know he's speaking to me. She doesn't speak to me. I don't have dreams of them talking to me. It's over. Our adventure is over. It's gone. I'm on a new adventure. But this same Jesus who's holding a hand on that side, who's holding my hand on this side. That is how I experience God every single day of my life. He's holding my hand. And he loves the adventure. And he suffers with me.
You said such a true thing yesterday when we talked about this, that she doesn't need you.
That is a very big thing. Because what happened afterwards? I mean, those first few months, I would wake up in the morning and I would start crying. Because I said, sometimes I would dream of her. You know, it's not a dream that she spoke to me. That never happened because I didn't expect that. But I would dream of her. I would dream of her. And then I wake up and I touch the bed. It's empty. And the deep sadness come over me. And then I would get up and I go to the bathroom and I'd see this face and I'd just start crying because that guy looks really, really in a bad shape. And I wash my face and I go down and the grandchildren will come and we start playing and we continue with the day. What was I about to say now? Okay. Right, sorry. And then I went to Egypt about a year, a little bit more than a year after she passed away, about a year. And the Egyptians, they asked me to share the story that I'm sharing with you tonight, maybe in more detail, because they also suffer so much, the Egyptian Christians. And we spoke, and I told the story, and I told these things, and I shared with my discoveries with you. 5 times. You know, I had 5 seminars. And when I came back home, I realized I finished telling the story. Because what I said to you also is, it was absolutely clear to me, Talita does not need me in any way. Nothing. She has everything that she needs. She doesn't need a candle, she doesn't need a prayer, she doesn't need even a picture. She doesn't need it. She doesn't need a picture. She has everything she needs. Everything she needs. I can add 0 value to her life with Jesus. But at the same time, she cannot fulfill any of my needs. It's finished. She cannot sit and drink Earl Grey tea with me, listen to cello music or to ZZ Top or whatever. She can't do that with me anymore. She cannot walk with me. She cannot enjoy the grandchildren with me. cannot speak to her. She cannot hold my hand. It is finished. And I realized that part of my life is done. And I had complete peace about it. Complete peace. Say, Lord, 44 incredible years. This woman made me who I am. She's the mother of my sons. But it's over. It took me a year to get there. I think some people take much longer. In my case, it's just because I spent so much time thinking and praying about it. Maybe that's why it's over. And then I will say, Lord, now my life will continue in any direction that you send me. I'm completely open for the new story. The old one is gone.
Thank you.
Sure.
Dirk, now we're going to have a break. And we're going to talk about the new adventure. And we're going to talk about the new stories. And I'm looking so forward to the second session. So we're going to break for 10 minutes. We're going to...
Mr. Cruz and Charlotte. And it was when I was in Mongolia that really stirred my heart for the Mongolian people. Like really broke my heart for these people. And I just was like, Lord, he was asking, who should I send? And I said, Lord, on the mountain. I said, I'll go. So we started the preparations for me to go to Mongolia. He told me in this journey, sell what you have, give to the poor and come and follow me. So I sold my stuff and I was on my way to Mongolia. However, when I got there, I was informed by the person I had been communicating with all the time that while you're in Mongolia, we cannot apply for the visa, which is a very important part of information that somehow we missed that completely. So it was panic stations, and I was like, what now? And I had a discussion with Dirk, and then we thought that we were going to do a training anyway in Indonesia. So I contacted the people in Indonesia, and I said, can I come for 5 weeks while they process this visa? And I can do the training as well. Wonderful, yes, we're going to have this training live, not online. Super excited. I've spent time in Indonesia before, for almost 7 months, so I love the people of Indonesia as well. And when I got there on the Sunday, I arrived on the Sunday, and by the Friday, I was out. I contracted dengue fever, which is bone break fever, and I ended up in hospital almost 2 weeks. I was then taken over to Singapore, where it took me a period of 3 weeks just to get the strength to take the flight back to South Africa. And that was an extremely difficult time for me. I had planned a whole trip with my sister and my nephew. We were going to travel on my way to Mongolia. We were going to go to China. We were going to go to Mongolia. They were coming with me into Mongolia. I feel like I should take this thing off. And so that was that loss of that dream, that holiday that trip that we had planned. It was also, when I got back to South Africa, I ended up in hospital again. And when I got out there, it was, thank you. If you can imagine having a ministry where you are, I was in that year in 6 different countries, running around doing Petra training, meeting so many people, putting things on Facebook almost every day. We did this, we did this, we did this in this orphanage, we did this in that orphanage, and I could do none of it. Absolutely none, because this dengue fever took all this energy, all the energy away from me. I mean, even when I got back home, walking from my parents' place to the shop at the end of the road, which is like 500 meters, I couldn't even get halfway there. So completely stripped of ministry. I'm a very outdoor person. I mean, I was doing three times a week 10Ks. And then if I wasn't running, I was running up the mountain and not able to do any of that. So that was very hard for me, not being able to move, not being able to. It was over Christmas time when I went home, I could hardly even help my dad, to decorate the house with him. I had to sit on a chair and, pass some things to him. Anyway, so it was a painful time as well, because I think of my niece, who I've been in children's ministry. We don't like the TV screens, and we don't like the phones and things like that. So I'm always doing things with my niece, and I wasn't even able to go and do anything with her, to lay on the bed and we watch something on the screen. So that was the loss of who I was, who I thought I was, and the life that I had, and the ministry that I had at that time. So all of that just taken in one swoop. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that. And tell us a little bit, what did you discover in this journey? Because of course you hit rock bottom when you looked at your life and nothing of what you were used to doing, and then there was a time that you had to be still to get better. And what did you discover?
So along with the dengue, we also discovered I had burnout. So I was told by Petra, staff, that I should go and take a 4-week holiday, or a break. No responsibility at that time at all. And so I started a journey with me and Jesus. And one of the first things that he was showing me was that I was saying to him, Jesus, I want to feel you. I want to talk to you. I mean, I've talked to you, but it's almost like I talk to you like in a church service or in a worship session. I want to talk to you about the little things. I want to hear from you constantly like this. And he took me to the book of Ephesians, and he said to me, in there it says, I dwell in you. And I mean, it sounds so stupid, I dwell in you, but it went from year to year. And he was saying to me, Odie, I dwell in you. I live in you. And at any time you can talk to me. At any time you can connect with me. And we started this beautiful unpacking of him then showing me my heart as well. That scripture in Jeremiah about your heart being deceitfully wicked, and showing me that only this, it's just by grace that you have all of this ministry, and that it's just grace. There's nothing, everything that I was thinking, this is what I've done, and this is what I am doing. He was saying to me, it's just grace. And then he started showing me this stinky heart, and he was just revealing to me that because I had been so busy in ministry, I had been to these 6 countries, and it was go, go, go. I was too busy God doing and not God being. But along with that, I also started to put my identity in what I was doing, and finding my value in that, and finding my purpose in that, and even enjoying to the point where people were constantly on Facebook saying to me, oh, you're doing such a great job, you're going to these places, you're so brave, and I started feeding off that. And he was showing me this has become an idol in your life. And then he gave me the scripture in Revelations 2, you have forsaken your first love. And nobody wants to hear that from the Lord. And of course there was a massive time of repenting, saying, Jesus, I'm so sorry, how? I'm so sorry I did that. How? And it's so subtle. You're doing God's work, you think you're doing good things, and it was just that you step into that pride so quickly. So that's what he was showing me. What I discovered in that is that I had started to get my value and my worth from people and not from him. He is the source of my worth and my value. But he led me to Ephesians, chapter 1, 2, and 3, and then he started to show me. I had started stripping my heart, and now he took me through this journey of uprooting all of that wrong thinking, that your value is not in people, your value is not in what you do, your value is not in what people say about you, your value is in me. And as we went through Ephesians 1, 2, and 3, daily, what does that look like? Where he's given us all spiritual blessing. And he was saying, your value is in who I say you are. In me, you are blameless. In me, you are holy. In me, you are redeemed. You are forgiven. And as I was speaking the scriptures over and over in my life, these new foundations, he started to lay these new foundations now. And that your value only is in who I say you are. So that for me was it was a game changer. In those 4 weeks while I was away, it actually extended it to another 2 weeks, so it was 6 weeks with Jesus, where I've never been in such a beautiful place before as I was with him then. But he was so gentle in the time. There was never condemnation, like, "Really, why did you do that?" and "Don't trust you anymore." And there was never that. Even though I felt heartbroken for doing this, I just felt his love just being poured into me daily. So that was also a beautiful discovery for me, his grace. And that's what he said, it's his grace. None of what you're doing, you can do without me.
I just keep listening to you, what a faithful God. Now, of course, only looking back, you know that the Master was overseeing everything. You didn't know what he was working towards. But tell us, what did you discover? What was put in place for your new season that was approaching that you didn't even know it was approaching? What did God put in place for you?
So once he started working with me and my heart, he then started working in the relationships around me. But again, showing me my heart in that. I was at a worship session with this other ministry that I'm with, and we were having a time of prayer. And the lady who was leading it, she said, we need to pray, we need to forgive the people who've hurt us. And then her husband was saying, no, but we also need to ask for forgiveness. We have been unloving or unforgiving towards people. And then I started praying and saying, okay, unforgiving, unloving. And immediately the Lord showed me, you've been unloving and you've been unforgiving towards your parents. And I was like, but Lord, look at what they've done. Look at this rejection. Look at this emotional abuse. Like, I justifying my behavior to the Lord. Saying, they want to reject me. I just will reject them. I was like, only you've been unloving and unforgiving towards them. So of course, immediately, then repenting and saying, Lord, I'm so sorry for that. Please forgive me for that. And just like that, the Lord turned this relationship around. You have to understand that this relationship, I say relationship, it wasn't really, but it was horrible. I was explaining to them last night, during COVID, the three of us were living together, but we weren't even talking to each other. So it's constant emotional abuse from them. And I remember it was so bad. I can tell you, I was hiking one day, and the thought came into my mind, it would be so easy for me just to step off this mountain right now, because it was just so bad. What was going on with them at home. And he turned that around in an instant. Where for the first time in 49 years, my parents and I actually started talking to each other and even joking with each other. Even my sister in Australia, when I was sharing with her, she was like, what has happened, to you guys? Because she's walked the journey, she knows. But looking back now, to answer your question, the Lord had to repair that relationship, because had he not, they would not have received her. Because I know my mom, she would have said to me, he's too old, it's too soon, and he's going to hurt you. Because, so I could just see this conversation happening. And the night I went to go and speak to them about Dirk, it was the most beautiful conversation I ever had with my parents. They didn't attack me, they didn't judge me, they didn't criticize me, because there was always a conversation that ended up just them shouting at me. And to the point where after the conversation I went for a run, and I came back, and my dad had bought this bouquet of this blushing bride flowers, and he bought a non-alcoholic bottle of champagne, and he's never done it, ever, for me in my life. So I really stand in awe of how he was putting that relationship into place without me even seeing all of this when it happened a couple of months prior to that. Even with my brother as well, that relationship as well improved very much. We could also start communicating with one another. That was the one area. Yes, very grateful for that. The other important one was where I was explaining about my identity, because the Lord had to come in to free me of that, like where I'm not finding my purpose and my value in people, where I know that now because of the foundations He laid down. Because had I stepped into that relationship with Dirk, then that would have been a recipe for disaster, because I would have wanted that for him to then come and form me as to be my value, to be my worth, and that's not our relationship. It should be. So if I again think back to it, how the Lord then also, started. He had to heal that. He had to clean that up and set that straight in order for me to step into this relationship, knowing whose I am and who I am. So, because I know, had I stepped into it back then, I wouldn't have been able to survive. Because Dirk and Talita, their world is very big. It's a very full life. And I know with my own insecurities and not knowing my value, my worth, that would have eaten me up. And it of course would have put a lot of pressure on Dirk as well, in between the two of us. So extremely grateful that the Lord restored that, redefined that in my life. Knowing what was coming later, knowing the tsunami that was coming later.
Wow. Can I ask Dirk to come and join us? And then Coetsee, will you take us through the next chapter? Thank you so much.
So it's incredible, your story. It's how God worked in different levels in your life, and you didn't even know that Dirk was thinking about a possible relationship at that stage. You didn't even know it. But God already knew that He's going to bring Dirk in your life. But you had to be prepared for that season, as He did with you, where you had to go through that same thing and know that there's a new adventure lying. So now, let's talk about the relationship. So now, you shared with us as well that you thought, that you're never going to get married. So that, and that you buried that. If you can just share with us how you did it.
So I was at another worship session, and we were just obviously praying and waiting on the Lord. And the picture that He gave me was that I put this whole idea of love and being married and all of that into this box. And it was on the shelf, and I even stamped it, expired. And He was showing me that I had hardened my heart to this and closed myself off to love, but also marriage, getting on with age, and it's not going to happen, and that's it. So of course, again, a time of repentance, saying, Lord, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for hardening my heart and closing myself off to this. And as Caroline was ministering to us, she was just saying, ask the Lord to come and fill our hearts with His love. I did that, and then come and fill my heart with the love for a person in that relationship. Obviously, she was talking corporately, so then I said for Dirk. And it was a little while after that, we also had another pre-meeting. And I remember the Lord was saying to me, this picture I had, so He was showing me, I was standing on this cliff, And I was looking over, and it was in this valley. It was very cloudy, and I couldn't see anything there. And he said to me, you fasted and you prayed. You've seeked me about Dirk. You've gone to your spiritual leaders to find out, is this now what I want? He said, you've done it all. But do you want this? Do you want this? And I was like, well, I'm so scared. And he said, you choose. Do you want this? And it took me a while, and then I said, yes, okay. And immediately, that peace, because I had been a bit wrestling with myself with this, immediately that peace brought me. And for me, that's an important thing, because when you make a big decision, you must have the peace of the Lord in your heart. So, but it was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience for me as well, because again, his gentleness in that. It wasn't like, you must marry Dirk, or you must go to Mongolia, back to Mongolia, whatever it was. It's what's your choice in this? I'm with you. So that was also a beautiful experience with me.
Yeah. You got an incredible story. So it's first this restoration with you, getting your identity in him. And then the other thing is restoring the relationship with your parents, because that was another foundational stone that had to be there before that could come in. The third thing is where you go and show you that picture that you had, is sort of where you closed yourself off and said, okay, prepare now for something, for a heart's desire that was buried, that I'm going to give you. So Dirk, when did you know? When did your thoughts about her being a friend and a co-worker in the ministry changed? That you knew there's something more serious going on here?
Yes, obviously, I mean, it is completely a surprise. It's a complete surprise, because we did training in Singapore and in Indonesia, like in September, October of the year that Talita passed away. I was still in pain, very much so. And then I had to do this training. Talita would always go with me. And I said, the best person that I can think of in terms of a colleague is Odie. And we had an amazing training. But I just found her very funny. I've known that all the years. She's been my colleague for more than 12 years. So it's not something new. I didn't discover anything new, but I just thought that she is incredibly funny. And maybe I needed just that funny person in my life at that stage. Okay, so I came back, and then she told the story of the dengue fever, and I felt a bit responsible, because I was the one that sent her to Indonesia in the first place. So I kept contact. Nothing of a relationship. No idea. Nothing. At that stage, I told you now, I went through this process of, Lord, the story with Talita is finished. So now I'm opening myself. I still have sadness, but I'm opening myself, as I explained about the railway tracks. I have respect for joy. If joy comes into my life, I will accept it. And but I said I have lots of joy with my grandchildren. I mean, wow, living in the same house with that crowd is just incredible. I have all the joy of that. I enjoy my ministry. I go to places. I go to Egypt. I go all over Ethiopia. So I don't really need another person. I'm certainly not going to look for a replacement for Talita. She's irreplaceable. And then the Lord started to show me, through people and through scripture, that you're not doing very well, man. I said, well, I mean, I'm doing well. I think I'm doing well. One of my Egyptian colleagues, friend, says, "Dirk, you look like an orphan." I said, I mean, okay, yeah, you accept that, I accept that, but I mean, you just see what part of me I didn't sleep, because in Egypt you never sleep a lot. It's just lack of sleep. But then I started to realize, maybe I'm not hearing the Lord yet. He says, "Let you're an orphan." And I realized very clearly, I am a team worker. I work better in a team. But it was even more than that. I just said, I have the most incredible life. I have so much joy. I have so much to share. My cup runneth over. I have too much joy for one person. You hear this? I have too much joy. I went with Clovis and Charlotte, we listened to a chamber choir in Nelspruit. Incredibly beautiful music. And I just said, this is too beautiful for one person. I need to share this. Okay, now, I said, Lord, Genesis 2, give man an ezer. Ezer is the Hebrew word for help. And Psalm 121 uses the same word. Where does my ezer come from? My ezer comes from the Lord. And I said, Lord, I'm going to pray then. If you say I need help, I'm going to ask. Because the help will come from you. And then a face started to pop into my mind. I'm sitting there in Nelspruit listening to this music. I think I must share it with somebody. So who? And only one face. Only one person. Okay. I said, no, she's too young. But get to work. So I park it. I go to Egypt, I do camps, family camps, and I think I should have shared this. This is so amazing. Who is the person that should have been here? Only one. Only one. It must be Odie. And we were doing the book of Ruth in Egypt. Boaz, it's the Lord saying, come on man, wake up. Can't you see? What must I show you? Boaz was this old man and Ruth was this beautiful young one. And come on, even different cultures, Afrikaans and English, what must I tell you? Until it was absolutely clear in my mind that the Lord is saying this is, but I just didn't have the courage. How can I come to this amazing woman and ask her, is it possible that I can actually start a new story? Because by this time I knew it's going to be a new story. I mean, Charlotte, does she has any of the gifts that I have?
No, but she's another
Absolutely, that's the point. I mean, she can cook, but normally we forget about cooking, so at 3 o'clock in the afternoon we say, are we going to have rice cakes and barber again? We said, rice cakes and barber, that's our lunch. It's just because her mind is not on that. So there's no way that Odette is a replacement of Talita. She's a completely new story, completely new chapter, and an incredible chapter. Because this is an incredible woman. She's incredible. Her courage. Okay, let's not start there. I just continue talking. God says, new story with a new woman, and you're going to take her as your wife. So I had to ask her.
And then,
She was on her way to Mongolia.
no, for a year.
I said, Odie, I would like to share my life with you. Okay, it took more words than this. I mean, because I had to become, with a long journey to that point. So you go to Mongolia for a year, and you pray about it, you think about it, come back after a year, and then you tell me what you think. She was completely shocked. She can tell that part of the story herself. And then she said, I don't think I need a year. Just give me 3 days to pray with her, to talk to the Lord, and she'll really know that part of the story. It is scary. It is scary to ask somebody like her. It is scary to think I'm going to start a life all over again. At this stage of my life, you don't start all over again. Especially not with somebody. I mean, she ran a 21 Ks 3 weeks ago. I struggle with the park run. It's just that. What an amazing adventure is starting now.
So when he asked you, was it a surprise? Was it in your boss?
Yeah, my neighbor. was. Yeah.
And from your side?
Yeah, so like Dirk said, in the beginning it was just, we were just work colleagues. When I got sick, that was all we spoke about, the recovery, what's going forward, and that took 10 months to recover from the dengue and from the burnout. During that 6 weeks time that I was having with the Lord, I did notice our conversations were so much not so, well, yeah, of course on the health and the recovery, but it started leading on towards what do you like, what do I like, and I noticed also we made some opportunities when he was going to Egypt or Ethiopia. You know, I would meet him for the coffee at the airport, but again, not thinking that this was going to happen. In fact, I was feeling like I don't really like this guy. He's very funny and we get on so well together. But I remember thinking at the same time too, Odie, don't go there. He's grieving, and that's, of course, that takes a long time to get over, and there's no ways at all that he would be interested in me, so just forget about that, park that, that's it, not happening. But at the same time, Dirk had shared in one of our devotions, that he is lonely, and that's hard for him. And I remember the one day he asked me to go watch this show, and then I was thinking, why must I go now? Because there's some other colleagues you can ask. And then I thought, Shane, he doesn't like going to the show by himself, and maybe he's lonely, and poor guy, let's go. Yeah, but I enjoyed it very much, and of course, so like I said, the more we were talking, the more I enjoyed it, but with this mind that's just, no, it's not going to happen, that's it, just be his companion. But I do remember once I was preparing for something, and I went to go and speak to Dirk about it. And I just felt very safe sharing my heart with him at that time, but not thinking, just thinking this is really a great guy but, to share your heart with, and a close friend. So he had gone from boss leader to a good friend of mine. I mean, when he did ask, that did shock me, because I immediately asked him why. Why me? I mean, there's many other ladies that would suit this category, who know how to cook and know how to organize and are as intelligent as you. And as he explained about how he was, always seeing me in that. And that made sense, because I was wondering, why is this guy sending me these pictures and these videos in this journey? But as he shared now, it was because he wanted to share that with me. So that made a lot of sense. But
So now you're getting married on the 11th of April. You're engaged. New season, new story. What do you see? What do you see in the future?
Yeah.
What does that hold in for you too?
I often use the word growth, because I grew for 40 years with Talita. The 6 months was an incredible time of growth. Growth as a person, growth in my relationship with God. I just grabbed onto the growth. I said, I can't waste the 6 months by moping and staying in fear. I have to learn as much as I can through the suffering that I go. The year after, I just said, I need to grow, I want to keep on growing. And when the Lord showed me you're going to marry Odie, I knew this is going to be a season of growth. I mean, like immense growth. But the beauty of it, we are not even married yet. The growth that already took place in me, just in the first 6 months since we started, is incredible growth. I can't wait to see the growth in me, but obviously in us. I know Odie is going to grow. She's going to grow spiritually, but I'm going to grow spiritually, socially, relationally, emotionally. I can't wait to see the growth. I never ever want to stop growing. Okay, that's my part.